Contact your attorney before it's
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
We're back. Gonna go live today. We had guests on for the last two live episodes, and so we
did the radio, but not Facebook.
But not Facebook. We didn't want to torture our guests.
Yeah, they were already a little nervous.
Yeah, so we thought we'd save them the discomfort of being live. But we're back now, so should be a good show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop those in the comment section. We'll try to answer them. Welcome to Aging Insight, everybody. This is your host, John Ross, here live in the studio with my faithful co-host, Lisa Shoalmire.
That's right. We're back together again.
That's right. Back in the studio, live on this 6th day of April, 2019, here to provide you all the information you need related to your health, housing, financial, and legal needs. This is Aging Insights, the #1 program related to all of those issues.
That's right. It's the #1 program, but seriously, we do come every Saturday because we want to maybe inform you, educate you. If we're lucky, maybe even a little bit of entertainment along the way.
A little entertainment here and there.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. You know, and of course, we are able to do this and able to bring you all of this information because of our sponsors out there, which, that was our last two guests, last 2 weeks.
Yes, we had Christian from Red River Federal Credit Union when she and I had a great time. So funny because she, we started talking about, scams and the issues they see at the bank. And she is as passionate as we are about trying to protect people from themselves oftentimes.
Yeah, trying to protect those folks out there. And then the next week, Lisa was out, I was in, and I had April Scoggins from Heritage Plaza over there on Elizabeth /52nd Street.
Yeah, April's been there a long time.
Yeah, I didn't realize how long she had been there, but yeah, she's been there.
That says good things, though.
It does, actually. It says a lot of stuff, and so yeah, she was able to come on and tell me a little bit about some of the nursing home ratings and some of the stuff on how to evaluate a nursing home when you're looking for one for your family, or even if you're just, if you're the kind of person that's so ahead of the game.
I don't know too many that are that ahead of the game.
That you're going out and checking them out just to know what your options are. You can check out that show, and it was a good one. So, those are some of our sponsors, along with Dirksen Memorial Hospice, Edgewood Manor Nursing and Rehab, the Barnett Agency. Barnett Agency gave us a shout out on Google this week.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's nice of them. So I did one in return.
Yeah,
I gave them a little shout out back.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Little back scratching there.
That's right. And Calhoun Creek Estates, Texarkana Funeral Home, Red River Federal Credit Union, Reunion Plaza, and Heritage Plaza. All of those are the folks that bring you this program. And so if you see them out there in the community, if you're doing business with them, or maybe you're just friends with them or whatever, let them know that you listen to the show, that you enjoy the show. That helps us stay on the air and bring you all of this content.
Yeah, no, it's kind of health fair season. There's a health fair season kind of in the spring and then another in the fall.
That's true.
So if any of you listeners out there are, happen to go to some of our local community health fairs and you see any of these folks out there, yeah, tell them, hey, thanks for sponsoring the Aging Insight Show.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, if you're the kind of person that likes to get out and do stuff, we got stuff.
Yeah, we do. So, okay, today is Saturday, John.
Today's Saturday.
Yeah, so Monday, I'm headed up to Hope, Arkansas, where I will be speaking to the retired teachers group up there in Hope. So if you are a retired teacher, then why don't you come on out to that luncheon up there in Hope on Monday? Hope is having a lot of big speakers this week.
Yeah, but
Bill Clinton might be there tonight, but I will be there on Monday.
That's right.
And you'd want to come hear me speak.
I guarantee between the two, every day you'd want to see Lisa speak.
Yeah.
And also on the evening of Monday, I do some courses over at Texarkana College for the community. These are, you don't have to be a student or anything. These are community related courses. And this is way for us to coordinate with the college over there to bring you educational information. These are free classes, and I've got one on Monday, Monday the 8th, and that's on how to draft your own will. I'm going to repeat that course again on Thursday. And so all you got to do, if you want to register for one of those, you just go to the Texarkana College website, go under their community education banner, and then search for DIY Will.
Yeah. So
and
now that's the same class both Monday and Thursday. So they only come to one. Is that
That's
right?
right. Yes, it's the same class. It's just 2 different nights.
Yeah, because sometimes you're busy on Monday and you need to come on Thursday.
That's right. Now we will have some more coming up. Shooting toward the end of May, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th.
That's April.
Of April.
Yeah.
Will be my advanced elder law course.
Yeah, that's a 3-night class, and so it is you come to every class.
That's right.
Because each class builds on the information from the one before.
That's right, and that one's so you walk out the door with every little piece of information you might need.
Yeah.
And you might even be able to remember some of it.
Yes, it's a lot.
And also on Friday over at Texarkana College is the mental health update. And this is primarily geared toward professionals. And so for our nurses and social workers and doctors and stuff out there, particularly those that deal with people that have cognitive decline. Mm-hmm. This is a big program they've got over there, and I am the keynote speaker.
Oh, okay, Mr. Keynote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They know who's boss.
That's right. Hey, you are generally pretty entertaining, so they want to make sure everybody's energetic and paying attention.
Yeah. So I'm speaking from 8 to 11.
You got that much in you?
You know I do.
Yeah. Don't let him fool you. He loves being on the stage. So. But
that's right.
But so really, there are lots of opportunities for you to, you can listen to Aging Insights. You can click on our previous shows on Facebook. You can come out to one of the community programs. We love for folks to come out and see us and be there in person. So, John.
Yes.
You said on Friday you're talking to the mental health conference.
That's right. This coming Friday.
You're dealing with cognitive decline.
That's true.
And doing and estate planning. So this week there was some stuff in the news that kind of made me think of that same topic, and that had to do with a celebrity of Mr. Tim Conway.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And to show you how prevalent this is, you have Tim Conway out there. Everybody knows who Tim Conway is.
Well, hopefully all of our listeners do. I don't think our kids know who Tim Conway is.
No, they don't have any idea. But our listeners, they know who Tim Conway is. And when it comes to facing issues surrounding cognitive decline, this is something that people deal with on a day-to-day basis. I probably had this conversation in the office this week. I had to have been at least a half a dozen times.
Yeah. So, we talk about diseases that they don't discriminate, right? They don't discriminate between wealthy, poor, race, gender, where you live, who your daddy is. I mean, so dementia and cognitive decline is the same way. Often though, when a celebrity and a celebrity's family is dealing with that issue, I guess we just think that, celebrities, they just don't have any problems. I mean, but they have celebrity problems.
Yeah, celebrity problems. Right.
Yeah. I mean,
not real people problems.
Right. I mean, like Nicolas Cage, he's got tax problems, but that's because he's made and blown millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
I don't have those kind of problems.
So you expect celebrity problems, but just good old fashioned, some good old fashioned inner family redneckery fighting.
Yeah.
You just don't really expect that with the celebrity crowd, but you know what? Family is family. No. Disease is disease. and it strikes everybody.
Okay. Well, and of course, I was the TV kid, John.
Okay.
I mean, so I do remember Tim Conway on the Carol Burnett show. Not my favorite show, but my parents liked it. So, and back then, there was only one screen in the house.
Right.
So it was in the living room and you had to watch what your parents were watching. So, some hee-haw, some Carol Burnett show. And so Tim Conway was a big regular on that show and as a comedian, but he actually got his start way back on another show called McHale's Navy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're going way back now.
Yes. And the other thing about Tim Conway that I think is pretty interesting is he was only 5'6" tall. That's how tall he is.
There's lots of short celebrities.
Yeah. So I don't know about that. But anyway, so Tim Conway said his goal in life was to be a racehorse jockey.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, the height was good because he was a short-statured gentleman. He said, but my weight was a problem. He said, of course, he's a comedian. He said, even the horses were wanting me off their back. And so, since the jockey thing didn't work out, he ended up kind of bumbling into an entertainment career. But, most folks really know him very well from the Carol Burnett show. But, I said a minute ago that our kids didn't know who he was.
Right.
But I bet they knew his voice.
I bet that's right.
Because he voiced a character on SpongeBob, the cartoon.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. So
I can't remember which character. I'm not a big SpongeBob fan myself.
All right. So if you're listening to the show and you know which SpongeBob character
Tim
Conway played, you can give us a call. It's 903-793-1071. Or if you're watching us on Facebook, you can throw that in the comments, and that way we.
You know what? How about we even go for a step further? If you know the character that Tim Conway, we'll have to fact check with Google. But if you know that character, if you're local, I'll get you a Ross and Shoalmire coffee mug and some special Texarkana blend coffee if you know the answer to that question.
Awesome. I like that.
But anyway, so Tim Conway, he's been very active in entertainment. He's 85 years old now, but he's had this very long career. He's won a Golden Globe, been nominated many, many times. He's also dyslexic.
Really?
Yes. And so he talked about.
Look at you, the knowledge of all things Tim Conway.
Hey, I was a TV kid, and but he talked about how reading out loud was just soul crushing, and everybody thought he was kind of dumb because reading out loud was such a struggle due to his dyslexic. And kind of like you said, many celebrities are kind of short-statured.
Uh-huh.
It's how many celebrities have we have that are dyslexic? I mean, like Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
Gosh, there's somebody else I was thinking of, but they just have to work that much harder. But everybody remembers Mr. Tim Conway from Carol Burnett show, particularly the sketch about the dentist. And you've got a blank look.
I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
And of course on Mama's Family, he played a character on that show. So great career, been married to he's had 2 wives.
Right.
His first wife, he had 6 kids with. Okay. And then his second wife, they got married in 1985.
Okay.
And so it's 2019.
Yeah. So they've been married for a long time.
They've been married for a long time. And so I kind of wanted to give all that background to go, you got this successful person. He's obviously very creative.
Well liked.
Yeah. Hard worker, kind of done things generally the right way. There was never any drug scandals or celebrity scandals with Tim Conway. But he's got a fairly stable family situation. I've been married since same lady since 1985. But at into his 80s, Mr. Conway began exhibiting signs of dementia and those type of things. And, that solid foundation seemed to crack a bit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this is just not uncommon. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to kind of talk about where Tim's at health-wise, and then what that has done in the family situation. So stick around. We'll be back.
Aging Insight with John Ross and Lisa.
Now, of course, we're still live on Facebook. Yeah, no, you know everything about.
I did do a little research. I did some show prep.
You did some show prep. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, some show prep. But I do remember as a kid in the Carol Burnett show, and of course, I didn't get the humor. I was 6.
Right.
I think it went off the air in the late 70s. So, so you didn't watch the Carol Burnett show.
We have somebody calling in, but we can't answer them while the commercials are playing. So anyway, that's what, if you see a flashing light,
yes.
I don't know if you can pick that up from the Facebook Live, but that's what that is. So we're gonna make this person call while we're actually live on the show. That way they get their voice heard.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I remember as a kid sitting around and it was sketch comedy. There was some singing and dancing, Carol Burnett, but Tim Conway was always involved in the sketch comedy. There was I do remember a sketch where they kind of did a takeoff on Gone with the Wind. This is the one where, Carol Burnett wore the drapes, and she still had the curtain rod in her costume.
Oh, yes.
That's you see that when they do a retrospective, of the show, they always show the scene from that Gone with the Wind sketch. But yeah, well liked, right? He kind of came from the same cohorts as like Ernest Borgnine, a lot of those folks.
Yeah, no. Of course, I wasn't a big. I didn't watch any of that stuff.
Yeah, I know.
And really, I don't remember my parents watching it much either. In fact, I remember my mother specifically saying that she was not a Carol Burnett fan. I think it's just a little too outrageous for my mother.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
well, probably not. Some of that sketch comedy may have not been hit the heartland the same way. I don't know, but he's not doing well. We'll talk about this when we get back on the air here in about 35 seconds. The dang disease, Alzheimer's, it just robs you of everything. Absolutely drives me nuts. Which is why I am such a supporter of the Alzheimer's Alliance, which, for those of you who are not aware, May the 4th will be the Alzheimer's Alliance Wine Festival. It's our biggest fundraiser every year. And so even if you're not a wine drinker, I expect you out there. All right. We're going back live here in a couple of seconds. Here we go.
Have a question? Phone 903-793-1071. Now back to Aging Insight with John and Lisa.
All right, everybody, we are back on the air, and during our break, we did get a phone call into the studio, but we can't really get it when we're on commercial break. So if the caller would like to call back in, we'll be glad to get you on the air.
But you got to call while we're live.
So anyway, we appreciate that. But yeah, John, so before the break, we kind of talked about the rise of Mr. Conway and the zenith of his career. Even as late as 10 years ago, he was he did a guest stint on 30 Rock, got a special award for his part on that. So, yep. I mean, he's been active his whole career until just the last few years when dementia has really robbed him of who he is and what and the craft that he had honed over all those decades.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily know exactly what the underlying cause of his dementia is. I find people are often confused. They think dementia is a disease, where dementia is actually a symptom of a disease. Kind of like if you sneeze, you might have a cold, you might have allergies, you might have the flu. Some are more severe than others. So the most common underlying cause of dementia is Alzheimer's, but there's also Lewy body, frontal lobe, vascular.
Yeah.
So there's Parkinson's related. There's a number of different dementia causes, but what we do know is that he has some form of it. It's clearly degenerative because he really apparently over the last several years or months, and here particularly recently, is basically non-communicative.
Right. And for someone whose trade was communicating with comic timing,
right?
There's a skill, a talent in that. So clearly, someone who had skills well beyond most of us when it comes to that kind of thing. You do not want me doing a stand-up routine. I can tell you that. But as happens in these type cases, as Mr. Conway's health deteriorated, his wife, Charlene, that they've been married since 1985, Charlene eventually had to get placement of Mr. Conway in a care facility that could meet his needs. And Charlene, they had done some great things. They had already gotten healthcare power of attorney and all the proper legal documents, a durable power of attorney.
Yeah, all the stuff that we tell all of y'all to get.
Yeah, so they had done that right. So they had gotten those documents, and she was able to manage his care and do what needed to be done to meet his needs with those legal documents.
Yep.
So why are we talking about it, John?
Why are we talking about it? Because apparently here recently a dispute arose between the wife, who's acting as the agent, Charlene, and the daughter, Kelly Conway.
Yeah, not to be confused with a certain political figure.
Right, different
Kelly Conway.
Different Kelly Conway, but this is Kelly Conway, the daughter of Tim Conway.
One of those 6 kids from his first marriage.
That's right, and so essentially, what the Kelly, the daughter, was saying that she was being denied access to her father by the stepmother. And that the stepmother had intentions to move him from a very nice facility to a not so nice facility.
Right. So apparently, as best we can tell, and I think this was all going on in the courts in Los Angeles, that this had been brewing.
Right.
This dispute had been brewing, and of course, it exploded in the court system. And as we tell our clients every day of the week, if we're in court, then everybody has already lost. They don't know it yet.
That's exactly
but everybody has already lost. So when we come back from the news break, we're going to talk about how Mrs. Charlene Conway, the wife, versus Kelly Conway, the daughter, and what things kind of rolled out in the court system. And of course, we know all of this about Mr. Conway because of the court proceedings, because they're very public.
Yeah,
and
exactly
so
right.
much for family privacy.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about some ways that you can maybe try to avoid this, some things you should know about it. We'll talk a little bit about the case. So good information. Stick around. All right, and of course we're still live on Facebook. We've got about it's about a 5 or 8 minute news break for our radio listeners out
but
there.
Our watchers get to hear us babble on.
No interruptions.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Heather out there, one of our newest member of the Ross and Shoalmire Elder Law firm practice, and she's at our Tyler office.
That's
so we're very glad to have her. So you can see us, we can't see you, but we're glad you're checking in with us.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. And of course, anybody else that's watching the show, feel free, if you have questions or comments, feel free to stick them in there. We'll be happy to answer any of those. So before we had to jump back on the radio, I did mention the wine festival. Again, that's going to be May the 4th. Really, it's a pretty cool deal for anybody that wants to come out.
Be at Spring Lake Park in Texarkana.
Yep, so Spring Lake Park. It's pretty much all day long. There's an open area that's got crafts, artists, live artists, all these really kind of artesian foods. All of that is open to the public. It's free admission for any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's free admission, but bring your money because you'll want to try some of those some great food, and of course, it's really interesting crafts and gifts and stuff out there. So you might want to pick up a thing or two for yourself.
That's exactly right. And then, if you'd like, for a very small fee, you can get entrance into the wine garden. And from there, you'll get a souvenir glass, you'll get a little bag, so if you want to purchase some wines. And from there, you'll have access to the 25 to 30 different vineyards that will be available out there. They'll all be providing samples, which you can purchase for $1 to have a little sample. You can purchase a whole glass of something you like. And of course, you can buy bottles of wines direct from those vineyards, as many as you like.
Yeah.
So you can completely stock up for your home,
for your summer and even your holiday.
That's right.
Future holidays. Now they will also have a beer tent for those who don't care for wine.
Yeah, if you like, if you're a beer drinker, Texarkana, the Alzheimer's Alliance provides the beer. We'll be the only beer provider. We're going to have some Texas craft beers there, and all of the money on the beer purchases stays with the Alzheimer's Alliance. So yeah, if you're a wine drinker, find you a couple of beer drinkers to bring along with you.
Yeah.
And all of y'all come out and have a good time. Hopefully, the weather will be good.
Yeah, so far, knock on wood, every year the weather's been great.
Yeah, we've had 4 years of absolutely perfect weather.
Yeah.
And
this year, everything's been a little, it's rained a lot.
It has rained a bunch. Surely it's going to stop.
Yeah. Well, and I also wanted to mention that John's talking about the Texarkana Wine Festival that benefits the Tri-State Alzheimer's Alliance for the Texarkana families. But there's also a wine festival in Longview, John.
Yeah, that's right. The East Texas Alzheimer's Alliance, they have their wine festival the weekend before.
Right. So if if you just want to, be a groupie and go to follow around the different spring wine festivals, then we'd also invite you out to the April 27th wine festival out in Longview, which is at the park they call On the Green.
Yep. That's pretty nice out there.
It is. And that'll be from noon to 6 on that Saturday. So you could sample what they do at Longview, and the vineyards they have there and their food. And then the next Saturday, you can come on down to Texarkana and kind of do the same thing.
Yep, that's right. So good stuff. Lots of entertainment options out there, and all supporting a great cause. Yeah, I wonder where that Longview East Texas Alzheimer's Alliance got their idea for a wine festival.
I don't know. It's their second annual. Is it? It's their second.
This is their second.
And in Texarkana, it'd be their 5th.
That's exactly right.
I think I could put that together.
Yeah, you might. But the East Texas Alzheimer's Alliance was basically created they have a board down there, but it's created in part by Kristen Ishihara, our Longview office attorney.
That was the whole point of the shout out.
So. All right, we're headed back live, so here we go. Welcome back to Aging Insight, everybody. This is your host, John Ross, here back in the studio after the news break with Lisa Shoalmire. And Lisa, we had the caller that called in during the break.
I think they're on the air shy. That's what I think.
Don't be scared. If you've got a question, a comment, or the answer to the mystery, what they have too. If you've got the answer to the mystery of what SpongeBob character was played by Tim Conway, then feel free to give us a call. You don't have to give us your name or anything. But the only way we can answer the phone is live on the show.
Yeah.
So 903-793-1071. Call us with just about any question you got, whether it's related to today's topic or not. So,
all right. So John, so like I said, so Mr. Conway is his health's deteriorating, and it's apparent that the family dynamics was also deteriorating, which is not unusual.
That's right.
Because a lot of times, you have that person that's sort of the glue that holds everything together, and perhaps as they deteriorate, the cracks that have kind of been covered over for all those years sometimes come to the surface. So although Mrs. Conway, would you say Charlene?
Charlene. Yes.
She was the designated agent on Mr. Conway's healthcare power of attorney, his durable power of attorney, his surrogate health decision maker. She was already designated on those type documents. But last fall, it may have been the fall before, she went ahead proactively. Charlene went to court and had the court declare her to be the conservator of Mr. Conway.
Yeah, and this is the term conservator is often what you would hear us refer to as guardianship. Depending on what state you're in, they'll use various terms for what is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Guardianship, conservatorship, or what do you Louisiana people call it?
Stewardship.
Okay.
What do you Louisiana people call it? Okay.
So yeah, that so where you are around the country, there's 3 or 4 different terms for it, but it's all basically the same thing.
I'm sorry, I was wrong.
It's tutorship.
Yeah. Look, I was thinking of the King of Thrones. I mean the
Game of Thrones.
The Game of Thrones. Yes,
oh,
I'm getting all messed up today. But yeah, no, in Louisiana it's tutorship. But so essentially, Mrs. Conway went to court. She had her documents. She was already appointed. But for some reason, and we don't know exactly the reason why she went to court, because the petition to declare her as the conservator really just outlined that Mr. Conway, due to his illness and incapacity, was unable to provide for himself, food, clothing, shelter, make medical decisions. Now, what motivated her, with already having powers of attorney in place, to go to the court and get designated? John, I can think of a couple of possible reasons.
I certainly can too. If he did have dementia, which it sounds like he did, for example, he could have been a flight risk.
Right. He could have been a bit cantankerous, a bit not understanding why he needed the type of care that he needed and the safety environment that he was in.
Yeah,
and could be insisting on he's leaving.
That's right. And while an agent with a power of attorney has the ability to make medical decisions on behalf of that person, they don't have the legal authority to physically confine a person against their will, even a demented person.
Right. So the agent cannot override the expressed decision and preference of the principal that has given them power of attorney.
That's right. So sometimes even with the powers of attorney in place, it's still necessary to get into the court system, because the one person that can give that kind of power is a judge.
Right.
And so that's where the guardianship or conservatorship or tutorship, whatever you want to call it, is going to come into play. So there might be that.
It also might be that the wife was, hearing some rumblings from the kids and knew that she thought she'd have a stronger position if she'd already gone to the court and been named as the conservator.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Is one thing we talk about to our clients a lot of times is that even though you have powers of attorney, if somebody is unhappy about those powers of attorney, one way to attempt to overrule those powers of attorney is by going through the guardianship process. So
yes,
it could very well be that the wife here was thinking, you know what, although I have power of attorney, I bet this daughter's going to run off and try to get guardianship and beat my powers of attorney. So I'm just going to beat her to the punch and go ahead and get the guardianship myself.
And so she did, and the judge apparently found that the statements in the application were true, that Mr. Conway was incapacitated at that point, and the judge did appoint the wife, Charlene, as his conservator. So that was done.
Right.
Some months later, the daughter, Kelly Conway, filed a motion to be appointed a temporary conservator over her father, over the wife.
Yep.
Instead of the wife, and she claimed in her application that the wife was intending to move Mr. Conway from the care facility that he was at, that she said was very high quality, and that the daughter Kelly thought that the wife was intending to move Mr. Conway to a lesser standard facility.
Right.
And so what happened then is the judge did put in a restraining order against the wife that prohibited her from moving Mr. Conway from his present facility, and to give the court enough time to sort out what else was going on.
Right.
And so I believe that restraining order remained in place for about a month. But the wife responded to the court and said, I have no intentions of moving my husband. And so the basis for Kelly being named as a conservator over me is moot.
Right.
And her petition to be named conservator should be dismissed. And ultimately, I think the ladies came to some agreement.
Yes, they have since settled their differences, at least to the extent that it's no longer a court issue. My guess is they're still going to have some differences out there.
Yeah, and and during that month, apparently, according to the news reports from the daughter, apparently during that month, perhaps she was denied some access to her dad. And
so the daughter is now saying that she's able to visit with her dad, that he's staying put, that all of these issues have been resolved. But I bet even though everything is resolved at this point, I bet they're not happy about it.
Well, yeah, first of all, they paid some attorneys.
I bet they did.
I bet they paid a lot to some attorneys. So that's not happy because you're wasting family resources.
That's right. You're wasting your own personal resources or family resources or whatever. I mean, one way or the other, you're wasting a bunch of resources.
I mean, obviously, if you truly legitimately feel like there's a big care issue or care need, I mean, if that's the option you have, is to hire an attorney and get into court, then that's what you do. But oftentimes in these deals, that's not really what's driving these disputes. It's all about power plays and who's in control, rather than ultimately a true overriding concern for the patient.
Yep.
That has at least been my experience in my own cases that I've had very similar to this.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the one thing that this one did seem to be somewhat unique in was neither side seemed to make any arguments related to the money.
Yeah. No, that certainly that was reported. It appears to be all of the petitions and filings and everything related to the actual care of the person,
right?
Instead of the expenditures out of the estate.
Yeah, whereas as many of the others that we have talked about on the show, there was almost always an element of financial issues in all of that. All right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take one more break, and then for our last segment, we're going to talk about a few things that you can do to maybe not completely avoid all of this, but it maybe head it off at the pass. So stick around. We'll be right back. Oh, I was holding that sneeze so bad. Oh man, I thought I was going to explode before I hit that button. I didn't want to sneeze in everybody's radio, and their car speakers explode.
Well, maybe everyone across the community would have got a collective bless you.
Oh, maybe so, yeah.
So there you go.
Oh, they may have heard. I don't know how quickly I got onto that. We'll have to look back at we've got a little graph here that shows, and so if it spikes up, it probably, there might have been a little spike before I hit that button.
Oh. Well, and John, so today we're talking about Mr. Conway, but how many of these type shows have we done? And we always come back to a lot of very similar information for our listeners and viewers. But I'm not, it's kind of peeking into that celebrity world, but I know we did a show on Casey Kasem.
Yeah, Casey Kasem,
the top 40 countdown guy.
Stanley,
Glenn Campbell,
the
country music star from Delight, Arkansas.
The astronaut.
Oh yeah, Buzz Aldrin.
The Saints owner.
Oh, Tom Benson. Yes,
Tom Benson.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, this pops up from time to time. I do remember though. I think the worst one seemed to me was the Casey Kasem one.
Yeah, that one was pretty ugly.
Yeah, but again, that had to do with a stepmom / wife.
I
guess they all really.
I was going to say,
have.
let's think about it. So Casey Kasem was current wife and kids from the prior marriage.
Yes.
Buzz Aldrin was
manager and kids.
It was kids and then manager.
Yeah.
Tom Benson was definitely current wife, kids from a prior.
Yeah. Glenn Campbell, same thing.
Yeah.
Current
wife, kids. And the interesting thing is statistically this plays out across the nation. I may have mentioned this on a previous show, but 90% of all contested probate cases are between a surviving wife and the children from the deceased husband's first or prior marriages.
Yeah.
That's 90%. Now there's some outside factors to that.
There's some between the kids sometimes.
Yeah, but some of that's not just evil stepmothers, despite what Walt Disney says about it. Some of that is just by order of death, right? Men are also 90% more likely to die first. So you get that sort of thing. All right, well, we're heading back live. All right, here we go.
All right, everybody, welcome back to our final segment today on Aging Insight. And we've kind of used Mr. Tim Conway's, suffering and difficult situation to kind of bring out some issues that we see very commonly, even in our own community. You don't have to be a well-known celebrity to have, as John put it earlier, some redneck conflict.
That's right.
So we really wanted to talk to this last segment about, what happened right here, what happened maybe wrong, and maybe what you have control over, and then what you don't.
Yeah, and one thing that I've mentioned, particularly in blended family situations, because we've seen issues of access and information being denied to somebody. So whoever they're appointing as the agent under that power of attorney, whether it's the spouse, whether it's one of the kids, over and over and over, we have seen that person turn around and deny access or deny access to information to their siblings, children, spouse, other people. So one of the things, it's one thing to say, okay, I want, my wife to be my agent for making my medical decisions. I want my wife to have access to my medical information under HIPAA. So you're saying, okay, I want my wife to make my medical decisions, but you can take it a step further. You can say, I want my wife to make my medical decisions, but I still want my wife and all of my children to have access to my medical information under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
Right, because I've had families say when we've talked about a general HIPAA release for medical information, that they've said, oh, well, I know my spouse will tell everybody that I want told about my situation. And, are you sure? Because, and if you're so sure, why not, if you believe the spouse is going to share your information with your kids the way you want them to, why not just put the kids on the document?
Then there's no reason to not put them on that HIPAA release, that's so that they have the access to the information.
Yeah. So HIPAA release, anybody that you want to be able to be kept up to date on your medical circumstances, they need to be listed by name on a HIPAA release.
Yeah, and you can also, even in the medical power of attorney, you could easily have provisions that say, I appoint my spouse to make my medical decisions, but in addition to making medical decisions, I expect her to maintain my family relationships in the same or similar fashion, and that's not necessarily going to prevent the fight, but it at least gives the kids a pretty good argument that if she is blocking care or access or blocking access, that we know what you wanted. It's in your document that you signed that says you wanted those kids to be around. Because otherwise, what we have seen is, that spouse or that kid says, well,
yeah, Dad really never cared for so and so.
Yeah, the reality is that he didn't like them anyway.
Right, and so it upsets him when they come to visit. So we're going to cut it off, and that may or may not be true, but I want you to think about your family relationships, and if some of your kids don't get along, or if that your spouse doesn't get along with some kids or in-laws or something like that, but you don't have those issues, and you're fine with them being around, then you need to make that clear as well.
Yeah, so you can definitely do some of that. Now, again, we did talk about the fact that one way you can defeat a power of attorney is by getting guardianship. So knowing that, it's not a bad idea to designate a guardian. Now,
should the need arise,
yes. Right? So I appoint my spouse as my agent under this power of attorney, but if I ever need a guardian, I want it to be
my spouse,
and it could be the spouse. Now, one interesting thing here, it hasn't really gotten to Texarkana all that much, but in some of the bigger communities, and we do have one person or two people around here, but you're starting to see the creation of what they call a private professional guardian. It's an independent third party that would act as that court-appointed guardian.
Mm-hmm.
If you anticipate or think that there's a possibility that there might be some inter-family squabble, that's ultimately going to land into the courthouse, it might actually be an interesting way to settle that by saying, look, I want my spouse to do it. If she's doing such a bad job of it that my kids are having a problem with it, that I want this independent third party to step in that's got no dog in the fight other than my best interests.
Yeah, and that would probably squelch, continued conflict in the courts.
And the final thing in all of this is lock up the money. I will tell you that this Tim Conway may be the exception here, where they did seem to be primarily concerned about the person. But I can't tell you how many contested guardianships I've had over the years where everybody said all they cared about was the well-being of this incapacitated person. But
that's what they said.
But as soon as we solved the money problem, nobody gave two turds about the well-being of the individual. And so I often, when I have a client come in and they say, well, my spouse, my kids, my whoever, somebody is there's a guardianship and it's going to be contested, one of the first things I often recommend is let's get a third party, a bank, or somebody to step in and take control of the funds. Because once the funds are taken control of,
Right.
you'll see after that who's really into this.
Right. And it's not uncommon. And frankly, John, when I'm visiting with a client and they're stating to me that the care being provided by another family member is so bad, so terrible, and they want to come in and take over. And we talk about guardianship being the nuclear option and the way to do that. I even suggest to them, I said, okay, why don't we file an application for you to be appointed guardian of the person? And we go ahead and ask that the court name a bank as the guardian of the estate. That way, the court will see we, or rather you, the client, are not motivated by the money.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't want to do that, which often tells me that gives me a lot of insight.
Yeah, we ain't stupid either.
So, but often if they readily agree and say,
yeah,
that's
no, that
fine,
makes perfect sense.
Because that would be best, and then we move on. Now, of course, the banks do charge a nominal fee for that, but I guarantee you the fees a bank charges to pay the bills and oversee the money is so much less than the cost of continued conflict in the courts.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And so the reason I mention all of this is because there's a lot of things you can do on the front end to make sure that your estate planning is solid. And that, often that includes setting up a trust, making sure your assets are in this trust. And if it's a blended family situation like this, in many cases, it does make sense to have a third party trustee who steps in if you become incapacitated automatically. And that way, even if somebody gets guardianship over you, they still don't have access to your funds, your money, your assets, because those are all in your trust. They're governed by your trust agreement, which is all being managed by an independent third party.
Yeah. And believe me, you have to have fewer assets than you think to a lot of people think, well, I don't have anything, there's not going to be any conflict.
Huh.
You'd be surprised. So
people fight about anything.
Right. But in Mr. Conway's case, they had documents in place, powers of attorney, things like that. Clearly, Mr. Conway expressed a confidence that his wife could manage his personal matters as well as his finances. The court went with that same endorsement by appointing her as conservator. So they ended up in a fight, John.
Yeah.
But the wife still, Mr. Conway's wishes seem to be
upheld.
Substantiated by the court.
Yeah,
so
she's still making the decisions, and now everybody has access. But maybe a couple of things on the front end that they could have done that might have hedged this off. But that the one thing we do tell clients all the time: if they're gonna fight, they're gonna fight.
Yeah, people are people.
That's right. All right. Well, you've reached another end to another edition of Aging Insight. Hope to see you at one of our programs, the Texarkana College ones or some of these others. And we hope to see you at the Tri-State Alzheimer's Alliance Wine Festival on May the 4th. Until then, we'll see you next weekend.
Bye-bye.
And let me make Tim Conway's picture go away. And we will see all of y'all next time as well.
Bye-bye.